MAGA is now resolute in handing Kamala Harris a free victory, which I frankly will welcome, by calling her a DEI hire every chance they get, despite the fact that Kamala Harris is unbelievably qualified. Now, I had to ask myself, I'm like, okay, maybe they might be onto something. I can always be wrong. I always want to double check and see if maybe Kamala Harris has done nothing but just be black, Indian, and female. I had to go check. So what I found was interesting. I found out that Kamala Harris graduated from Howard University and the University of California, Hastings College of the Law. She began her law career in the office of the District Attorney of Alameda County before being recruited to the San Francisco DA's office and later the City Attorney of San Francisco's office. In 2003, she was elected DA of San Francisco. She was elected Attorney General of California in 2010 and re-elected in 2014. Harris served as the junior U.S. Senator from California from 2017 to 2021. She defeated Loretta Sanchez in the 2016 Senate election to become the second African-American woman and the first South Asian American to serve in the U.S. Senate. So at this point, it's unbelievably obvious and clear to anyone who's honest that Kamala Harris is not a DEI hire. She's qualified. It's end of story. Like, she's qualified. She's rose through all the ranks. She's attended all of these prestigious schools. She's done everything she needed to do. It is unbelievably obvious to anyone who's honest that Kamala Harris is qualified. Overqualified in comparison to every single person levying critiques against her. And we're going to go through all of them. So an individual by the name of Alec Lace on Twitter called her the original Haktua girl, and also said that Kamala is a DEI hire. Let's see what he had to say.
Yeah, and then there's the DEI press secretary telling you that the DEI vice president is the future of the party here. And so the future looks kind of dim for the Democrats here, but this is no shocker either. Kamala Harris, she's the original Haktua girl. That's the way she got where she is. And the party's going downhill if it's in her hands.
That was tough. That was harsh.
Even his own fellow Trumpites were like, that's a little bit too much. Now, I wanted to look into this guy. I wanted to know who in the hell Alec Lace is. Now, come to find out, this guy apparently hosts a podcast on Rumble. I don't know, his hair is spiked upwards. I don't know what decade he thinks it is. It's not 2005 anymore. This guy hosts a podcast in which he speaks with Darren G. Beatty, a January 6th denier. So, a supporter of Donald Trump who associates with January 6th deniers is an individual who thinks he can tell the American people that Kamala Harris is somehow not qualified. Need I remind you, you support an insurrectionist president who broke his oath to the Constitution. Who in the hell are you to argue or decide whether someone is or isn't qualified? But I would encourage you to continue your DEI attacks, because the more you do this, the more likely Kamala is to win in November. If you have any N-words in storage, feel free to release them. Now, more Republicans come out, lawmakers, legislators calling her DEI. We have Tim Burchett calling her a DEI hire as well. We're going to look into his record as well and figure out whether he's qualified to be talking any modicum of
I always just say put the best player in. I mean, we've got a DEI hire in here, and Biden said, first off, he said he's going to hire a black female for vice president, and that he just skipped over. What about white females? What about any other group? When you go down that route, you take mediocrity, and that's what they have right now as a vice president.
Now, it's interesting that Mr. Burchett is concerned about mediocrity. Because if I look into your record, Mr. Burchett, I find some comedic things. I see here that in 2006, while state senator, Burchett failed to report 6 political action committee checks totaling $3,300. The Registry of Election Finance did not fine him. Looks like somebody got off scot-free. I wonder why. In 2008, while still a state senator, he was fined $250 for failing to disclose 3 PAC contributions that totaled $1,500. In 1999, Burchett received national media attention for sponsoring a bill to legalize the eating of roadkill, wild animals killed by vehicles, before notifying the county game warden. He defended the proposal as a common sense thing, intended to prevent edible meat from being wasted. Eating roadkill was already legal, as it is in most places, but required prior notification of the county game warden. Burchett's bill allowed processing and consumption of roadkill before notifying the warden. Burchett proposed the bill after being contacted by a constituent who had been penalized for giving a needy family the meat from a deer his vehicle had accidentally hit. This guy could have just easily argued for his constituent to not face legal charges. But to argue that people should just be able to grab roadkill without notifying the county game warden is GTA servers level of just retarded. But these are the people who are telling you what DEI and unqualified looks like. These are the people. Then we have another conservative, one who's not even American, just going full-blown racist. We have Konstantin Kisin. Konstantin says, you couldn't write a better finale to the last 8 years than a demented president resigning and handing over the candidacy to someone who was picked because she had a vagina of color. Now, this is a guy whose channel is called Trigonometry. He's a dork. He's one of those conservatives whose only sense of humor is, how can I offend? How can I incite the most amount of hatred toward groups I don't belong to? This is a guy who is poisoning the minds of Americans by trying to make it seem like Joe Biden is worse than Donald Trump. Number one, you're a foreigner. Number two, burn in hell. Donald Trump is an insurrectionist traitor who violated his oath to the Constitution. For you to even try to convince my fellow countrymen to support a man who betrayed his oath means you should burn in every single circle of hell. I despise deeply every single foreigner who lies to my countrymen and turns them against the United States Constitution. I despise all of you. And for you to use racial attacks against the vice president is classless, it's disgusting, and it's just weird. Why do you pride yourself on how nasty you can be to people on the internet? It's just dorky. It's just weird. It's like, who does that? Who prides themselves on that? It's fucking weird. Trigonometry. I thought we left the word triggered behind like 2016. Everyone else but you, everyone else in the conservative movement but you has left that word behind. This guy's a cornball, an absolute cornball, talking about how the greatest finale to the last 8 years is Biden handing off the torch to Kamala. Did you miss January 6th? Did you miss, you feel like this is the ultimate end? You feel like this is the line in the sand for how bad American politics has become. Konstantin Kisin is an absolute retard. But it gets better. See, Byron Donalds and Lauren Boebert also feel as though Kamala Harris is DEI. Byron Donalds feels like you shouldn't bring it up because, well, her record is horrible. And Lauren Boebert just 100% thinks Kamala is DEI.
I don't think we need to even say stuff like that. Don't think so. Look, Kamala
Why is
Harris,
that?
because her record is abysmal.
We are just repeating what Joe Biden himself said, and I dropped the receipts.
Now, it's really funny because Byron Donalds doesn't say, you know, we shouldn't say that because it's racist, because it inspires lack of trust in average everyday Americans toward people of color who occupy positions of power and responsibility. Oh, no. That's not why this DEI stuff is bad. It's bad because, well, Kamala's just, she has a horrible record. Byron Donalds can never bring himself to just say racism is wrong. Just say that. Just say, you know, it's racist. It's wrong. It's not the way to handle this. It's not a good way to communicate to American citizens the qualification of a candidate. That's all you had to say, but instead he just makes excuses. Now, Lauren Boebert sits there and doubles down on this. And it's really funny because Lauren Boebert, you talked about receipts. I got receipts for your ass. According to you, despite the fact that you've served in Congress for the last 4 years, you've only passed one piece of legislation and you admitted it in a debate. I've got the receipts for you.
I know what it means for a bill to be passed and signed by governor or president. So for Ms. Boebert, how many bills did you prime sponsor? I said 38 I prime sponsored, not co-sponsor, because you can co-sponsor post facto. Anybody can put their name on a bill after it passes. How many bills did you prime sponsor in the U.S. Congress that actually were signed by the President of the United States?
So thank you so much, Richard. You know, it's interesting that you're touting the legislation that you have passed. You also say that you are a no-nonsense conservative. Well, I think the voters back home should know that a no-nonsense conservative should not have a failing Liberty score. We have the Independent Institute who scores representatives for their legislative record. And if you are not voting how you campaign, well, then you get a negative impact. And I'm the only person.
Would you like to answer the question, or would you like to talk about Liberty scores? You can answer the question, ma'am. It's okay.
Will. So,
I asked a very specific question. Please answer.
One of my favorite pieces of legislation that has been signed into law is my Pueblo Jobs Act that creates at least 1,000 jobs in Pueblo, Colorado. We worked to incorporate the BRAC process, so nearly $7 billion in infrastructure would not be bulldozed and go to waste. But there are also many other pieces of legislation that I've passed through the House. And
it doesn't matter if it's passed through the House. If the president doesn't sign it, ma'am,
government, and I'm not going to compromise my principles to just pass a bill
that
Thank does not honor.
I would give you one more opportunity if you would like to answer his question, which is the number of bills you've prime sponsored that have been signed by the president.
So my Pueblo Jobs Act has been signed into law.
A number, please.
That is one.
That's not the end of Lauren Boebert's foolishness. Since Lauren Boebert wants to talk about receipts, I went and found some of you, Lolo. Here's what you wanted to do. An amendment numbered 8, printed in Part B of House Report 118602 to reduce the salary of Melissa Schwartz, Director of Communications of the Department of Interior, to $1. Then, again, you wasted more American time and money with foolishness. Here we have number 36, House Amendment 1128, description, an amendment numbered 7, printed in Part B of House Report 11602 to reduce the salary of Michael S. Reagan, administrator of the EPA, to $1. Is it not abundantly clear and obvious that nothing but chaos and destruction follows these MAGA morons and treacherous Trumpites, and yet they still think they have the high ground to tell someone else they're not qualified? It doesn't stop there. What you thought it was, it's not over. Lauren Boebert's even more of a bum than you thought. House Republican Lauren Boebert was criticized by the White House and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg on Wednesday after posting about having secured over $51.4 million for the South Bridge, despite the funding coming from legislation the Colorado lawmaker voted against in 2021. Oh, so you're a liar. Just like your master. Okay, just like Donald. Boebert shared a photograph on X of herself with a Glenwood Springs city councilor, adding, "Great meeting with Glenwood Springs city councilor and former mayor Jonathan Goads. We have secured over $51.4 million for the South Bridge." You are lying to people from your own state. Why? Did you tell him that you voted against this? Did you tell the truth, or were you over there lying? She was thrilled to hear about nearly $30 million in cost savings in addition, and that her support has helped make this project a reality. The official White House press office shared Boebert's post, adding, "One thing about congressional Republicans, they're going to take credit for investments they voted against." Donald Trump has ushered in an era of lying and foolishness, the likes of which we never thought possible. And he's the most non-DEI guy you could ever have. White, straight, male, pretends to be Christian when convenient. Somehow or another, that man has managed to usher into the most ghetto, disruptive, dysfunctional era of American politics in decades. Decades. And listen to what Lauren Boebert said. She's talking about a Liberty score. So instead of passing legislation that actually benefits not just America, but also your constituents, you have now decided in your mind to honor this Liberty score nonsense. It has nothing to do with your constituents. You have now sworn an oath of your own to obstruct any and all productive legislation because it's against your principles. I'm pretty sure the Bible speaks extensively about how much Jesus and his dad aren't fans of you lying. And yet you get in front of your voting base and lie about a bill that you did not help pass and actively voted against. And yet you think you have the receipts to prove that Kamala is somehow or another not qualified and is DEI. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with unbelievably unqualified characters. I'm not even going to call them people, they're characters. Unbelievably unqualified characters trying to dictate what the definition of qualified is. Somehow these people are going to tell you what qualified is, despite the destruction they have gleefully left in their wake. This is MAGA. Total foolishness, absolute chaos. And I guess because they're white and Christian, you should never suspect them of being DEI. These people hide behind their race, their religion, and their ethnicity as a means by which to make you believe and assume they're automatically qualified. Well, all the other great presidents were white. The majority of Americans are white. The majority of qualified Americans are white. Well, I'm white. I must be qualified. Never look into what I've been up to in Congress. Never question what I've been doing. Never look into that. Just assume I'm qualified. And Lauren Boebert, weren't you acting a fool at like a play or some kind of like theater, acting a fool in public while you were an elected official and you flipped the bird at a bunch of people working there when you were kicked out, then lied and said you didn't do that? I can't recall when Kamala Harris did that. It almost seems like establishment politicians are much more classy, much more upright, much more, the standard bearers of good American politics. It seems like it to me. It seems like MAGA is a disaster. Y'all are crazy. And yet you somehow think that you can determine who and what is DEI and all of that. Y'all are all cowards hiding behind whiteness, Christianity, and all these other qualifiers to make you seem qualified. But what we will do is look into each and every single one of y'all's backgrounds to find out what you've been up to. Because you will not hide behind whiteness and Christianity to defend you. Now, I've got no issue with whiteness, no issue with Christianity. Don't take me the wrong way. But I feel white people, I'm just saying, it seems like some of the losers in y'all's ranks are using the rest of y'all as a shield to hide behind their own stupidity, their own foolishness, their own nonsense. They're hiding behind the rest of y'all's accomplishments to make it seem like no need to investigate me. I'm white, I'm Christian, I'm supposed to be here. Nigga, please. I'm on your ass. Don't ever launch DEI accusations and be a January 6th Trump apologist, an individual who lies and finesses their own voting base. That's a lot of y'all, including Trump. An individual who's like failing to report donations on purpose and constantly getting away with it. I could sit there and say, well, you're a straight white male. That's why you got away with all of those issues that you had over there, Tim Burchett. I could flip the script on you and make everything about your career based on race. But if I do that, I'm anti-white, I'm this, I'm that, and everyone knows, anyone who watches my show knows, I don't hate white people, okay? I make race jokes about everybody and everything. But I could easily sit there and flip the script on Tim Burchett and try to make it seem like his whiteness was his maleness and whiteness was the only thing protecting him from what he had done. Now, more than likely, our political system back then was a lot more slap on the wrist back then. That's probably why he got away with it. But I could racialize that. I could do that. I could be an asshole and drive further wedges between Americans by trying to be a head. But the reality is this. Conservatives are, not only are you guys handing Kamala the victory, but I'm going to try to appeal to your better selves. When you call each and every single person of color DEI, regardless of whether they're actually qualified or not, what you end up doing is you end up defeating the very thing you told blacks in America for years. Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Thomas Sowell, you told black Americans for years that if they simply worked hard and kept their head down, race would never be an issue in America. And now, because you're desperate about Donnie possibly losing in November, you are now invalidating the hard work of a black and Indian American woman. and reducing every single thing she's become and aspiring to become down to her race and gender. You're not encouraging minorities to work hard. If anything, you're encouraging white Americans to doubt and to fear their fellow Americans' qualifications on the basis of race. You couldn't be in this position. You're black. That's what you're doing. You're sowing the seeds of that in this country. You're defeating the very thing you lectured to black Americans about for years. Because when I look into the backgrounds of people like Kamala Harris, all I can see are accolades and accomplishment. All I see is American excellence, much less black excellence and Indian excellence. I see American excellence. When I look at Lloyd Austin and how he served our country as an infantry platoon commander and later on as a general, and y'all call him DEI and you demand for him to be paid $1 a year? What could a black man do? What could a black woman, what could a white woman, what could any of these demographics y'all have no respect for, what could they do to convince you they deserve to be there? Because it ain't just black folk. It ain't just brown folk. It's also white women too who catch DEI strays all the time. So like, I'm curious, if someone is not a straight white male, what in the, do we have to sacrifice goats to Satan? Like, what do they have to do? That wouldn't work because y'all are all Christian, right? What would they have to do to convince y'all that they deserve to be there? You can't have it both ways. You can't sit there and tell black Americans America's not a racist country, and if you simply work hard and put your head down, everything will be A-okay. And then when you're in panic mode because Donald is a crazy candidate and now you're running against like the female Barack, if she can up her charisma XP, now all of a sudden it's time to just spam racism. Like, what's going on with that? What's going on with y'all? What happened? I'm just saying, it's a crazy switch up. Very, very crazy indeed. I don't think you guys are going to stop. In fact, I think you're going to get worse. And if you do, and you feel like using the N-word, please use it, because the worse this gets is the more likely we are to win. The more likely Kamala is to McGregor walk her way into the office. So if you have any more racism in the tank, by all means, unleash it. Other people, please let it stop. No, keep going. The more you do this, the more likely we are to win. I want to formally thank any and all MAGA people who have engaged in this behavior. You are aiding in our ability to win this November. Thank you. And I hope every single person who's watching this of any political affiliation has a great day. I'm out.